Let me start with a question and bring up a quote on the screen. How many of you have ever seen this quote somewhere along the way? It's this quote that says, "Preach the gospel." Now, if you're not familiar with that word, the gospel just means the good news about what Jesus has done, his death and his resurrection, and the good news of what God has done in our world. And that's all gospel means. Preach the gospel at all times. If necessary, use words. Now, that's a quote that's been floating around, at least in Christian circles, for quite some time. It's attributed to Saint Francis of Assisi. He was one of the early church fathers. Some people have said that they're not even sure he's the one that originally said that, but he gets quoted that way a lot of times. That's really not the point. The point is this. That quote, as you see it right now on the screen, that's actually a misquoting of the original phrase. There's actually one tiny word that's been changed over the years, and I believe that one tiny word has changed the entire meaning of that phrase. In fact, I think it's destroyed the meaning of that phrase, and it's the word if. Now, I'll tell you why I'm pretty sure someone along the way changed the word or stuck that word in there, because let's be truthful. When it comes to talking to people about faith, talking to people in our world about matters of faith and the story of Jesus and the gospel, the good news, it's quite honestly probably the least favorite thing most people want to do. In fact, it's the thing that we all want to run from. I mean, you've probably heard this said many, many times. The one thing you don't talk about with your friends or your family is faith and politics. And so we steer away from those things. And so when it comes to matters of faith, we all just kind of want to shy away from that whole idea of speaking out and talking about our faith. And so this quote, as it's written, is basically getting us off the hook. It's saying, hey, look, you can preach the gospel, but you don't ever have to say a word. You can just live your life. You can love people. You can serve people. You can just do all of that stuff. And if you'll just do that, you don't ever have to say a word. They'll just get it. They'll just be drawn to Jesus. And most of us like that idea because, again, it makes us feel better, and we don't have to speak up or say anything. So someone actually changed that word if. Here's actually how the quote was originally said. Preach the gospel at all times. When necessary, use words. See, at some point, it really becomes necessary for followers of Jesus to use words in order to share the story of what God has done through Jesus in our world. And it's the same thing for us. At some point, if we're going to be serious about the mission that Jesus gave us to go into all the world and to share the gospel, share the good news with every person we come in contact with, there's going to come a point where we have to not just do actions, but we have to speak words. We have to share the story. We have to say something. We have to speak up. Because think about it, you would never say this about pretty much any other area of life other than this one. For example, you would never say to a relief worker working in a famine where people were starving, hey, go feed the hungry and if necessary, use food. You would never say to someone, a doctor, hey, go care for the sick and if necessary, use medicine. Or to a comedian, hey, make people laugh and if necessary, tell jokes. I mean, it's ridiculous when I put it in those terms, I know. But most of us Christians, that's how we approach this whole topic. We shy away from speaking up and telling the story of Jesus. In fact, one of the very earliest followers of Jesus said it this way. He said, how can they call on Jesus to save them unless they believe in him? How can they believe in him if they've never heard about him? And how can they hear about him unless someone tells them?